gang, then you know what? You fall underneath the Terrorist Act, and you will be prosecuted accordingly. And I mean, and that's something that's enforceable. Why? Because your police departments, whether it's the state police, the county, or your municipal police, they all know who these folks are. And you know what? I don't see anybody breaking their neck to go register them. But the thing is, we know what their business is. And instead of coming after the innocent, law-abiding citizen that wants to just, live the letter of the law of the U.S. Constitution, a document that has kept us free for over 200 years, we shouldn't be penalized for that. And I mean, you seem like you're a very well-grounded person. You understand common sense. I'm not explaining rocket science or calculus. This is pretty basic stuff. So I think what the ladies and gentlemen in this room are asking for is we've had laws on the books for a very long time. And you know what? We are sitting in this room today because the people that came before us, they lived by those laws. Right. And the people that were there to serve and protect them, they enforced the laws. We don't have law enforcement here. We have crime management. We don't need crime to be managed. We need crime to be solved. So if we're going to spend calories and dollars each of our own paychecks, yours including, because some of your money is going to go into the same pot as ours, I think that's where you need to begin. The people in the Chicago machine and the Madigan machine, they think taking the guns away is going to be the quick fix. Blue sky with me just for a second. Let's suppose we took all the guns away. That was accomplished. All the guns are away. Now all of a sudden somebody gets shot with a gun. What happened? Everybody did their part. But the end result was still the same. So you're not going to take, and just because you take away people's firearms and the right to have them, you're not going to solve the problem. The problem is always going to be there. You've got to go to the root of the problem. If you, the legislature, wants to make a difference in our society, maybe we ought to outlaw that parent. Because that's kind of what it all starts.
Yes.
Is there a question over here?
Yeah, I had two questions. One is I don't see anything about reciprocity in the proposed amendments. Is that being discussed at all? So, and two, just looking over these proposed amendments, like if even a quarter of them get adopted, this bill's going to spike. What's the backup plan when, like, you guys don't get nothing passed by June? Do you guys have one?
What is the backup plan?
I know it's going to happen. I'm curious what the state's going to do.
They'll pass a bill at the last minute if it means holding us there hostage until midnight. They will pass a bill.
Really,
It may not be something that we like. They'll pass something. Unfortunately.
The reciprocity issue, are you going to recognize, are we going to be able to, like the people in Wisconsin, are they going to be able to protect themselves? Well, we go to Wisconsin, or, that's what he means by the reciprocity.
It hasn't been addressed. It hasn't even come up.
That should be, any state that has a carry should carry in the state.
When the requirements are similar to theirs, as far as classroom training and range training, so qualifications are the same, you end up with reciprocity, so I think that should be something you might want to address.
So we have a 10-proof background check and stuff like that, and I would imagine half the people in this room probably do Utah or Florida permits now, which with that I can cross the border in Wisconsin and lock and load. Right. Remain safe, it's just
Right.
that simple.
And that makes sense.
Don't feel safe for those
We are
people.
supposed to work.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just, we've always talked about concealed carry and all that stuff. I just got you on record to express my opinion and ask and suggest that all of us, especially you, Rita, you got to keep this in context of our Second Amendment rights. And I think I mentioned this to you before. It's not just the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, Article 22 of the Bill of Rights, the Illinois Constitution. Yes. Keep this in mind. All this talk about permitting and allowing and qualification and testing and pay a fee and file an application and keep a record. That's bullshit, I'm telling you. Let me finish. I know this is going to pass, and this is the direction we are going. But even so, keep this in mind. It's a right, not a privilege. It's a right that we have to defend ourselves and to carry a weapon, not a firearm. And the Constitution doesn't say you have a right to keep and bear firearms. It says arms, and what the Constitution qualifies as an arm. A pitchfork, a knife, a brick, a rock, a slingshot, it doesn't matter. A sword, whatever I choose as a free American citizen, whatever I choose, and whatever I feel is appropriate for my use in self-defense, and it's different for you. The thing about firearms, and again, I think I mentioned this to you before, firearms are the most efficient and effective tool for self-defense. They are the equalizer. Because I'll tell you, and I'm not going to ask you to point one out, but as you sit here, I want you to think about this and look around this room and think to yourself, which of these men you could take one-on-one, or how many of, which three you could defend yourself against one? No, you couldn't. And that's why we say you, and you, Claudia, have the right to keep and bear arms for your self-defense. And you choose what that is. Because I'll tell you what, if you said, hey, you can't carry a gun, but you could carry a knife or a sword, the stronger, the younger, the faster person is always going to be at an advantage. The weaker, the frail, the disabled, the elderly are going to be at a disadvantage, and that's why we say the gun is the equalizer. And so keep that in mind when you're discussing this, and you're looking at these amendments, and you're talking to your colleagues. Hey, man, you know what? This ain't a privilege. This is a fundamental right. It's not just a morality right. It's a fundamental. It is core. It is core to everything that America is. And it is. Gun control is what began the founding of America. It was the British insistence on disarming American citizens at Lexington and Concord that kicked off the Revolutionary War. That's why they came to take guns and power from the American citizens, or at that time the colonies. And that's what it started. And so this whole question about gun control, it was settled. It was debated, and it was settled in 1781 with the ratification of the U.S. Constitution, the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. It's bullshit to talk to me about allowing me the privilege of carrying some weapon to defend myself.
We are legislating, we're creating a new wheel here. In a lot of states, most of them, they already have laws on the books. They went from non-concealed carry to concealed carry. There's statistics about what happened prior to and after the laws were actually allowing citizens to carry. Somewhere in there, some state did it right. Why can't we get close to what one of those did? And maybe perhaps
Michael says no.
Yeah.
They all seem to be pretty close. You look at this sort of thing. So why don't we start as a zero reference point with something that somebody else already did?
Okay, well, let me answer that question, because when the edict came down that we had to pass a concealed carry law, I'm going to say that the majority of representatives all jumped on New York City. New York. Yeah. Hey, New York, yeah, let's say, hey, we have to pass something, we're going to pass New York. And then New York started having problems with their law, and actually it's currently being challenged. So that's the, they did go there. They were going to go with New York, which is, essential personnel only. Yeah, hey, you said pick one, and they picked one, they picked New York.
There's great examples that are far less restrictive. Why do you want to burden us with all these restrictions when they don't do anybody any good. It doesn't change. Look at those ones, look at how it was before concealed carry, all the statistics you want, violent crime being at the top of the list, and then look after concealed carry.
But if you look at like Hawaii's law, it's very restrictive, and they don't have high crime. It's a very restrictive law. Well, that's true, but that's not
Looking for mom. Basically, I have to say, if you're going to use some example, use all of it, everywhere.
Right.
In England, they enacted gun control. Prior to that, they had low crime rate. After that, the crime rate went up a little bit. Australia, they control guns, and perhaps it went down. In Mexico, if you own a gun, not if you carry it, if you own a gun, you go to jail. They've got a gun shooting problem. People get a lot of violent crime. Colombia, same thing. Venezuela, same thing. They're all against the law, but you have a high crime rate.
And that's what they want to do for Chicago, because Chicago keeps asking for that exclusion for that very reason, because, look at it, face it, the shootings in Chicago are.
Yeah, how's that gun control working out for them?
It's all games.
It's all they want to outlaw guns, period.
If that, it does, and that's where gun control works. Chicago is the safest city in the planet.
It is all the murder capital. They're not going after the
Oh, where
criminals.
are they getting the guns?
Straw bought purchases.
It's not- it's
stolen.
Federal government's ability to fund social care.
Okay.
If I may, just, so say, addressing this point, there's a little difference between New York's law, which predates the Moore versus Madigan decision
Right.
and our situation. Now, part of that, everyone says Moore versus Madigan, everyone's aware of that. This is Mary Shepard. She's a church treasurer in downstate Illinois. She has a permit, 2 permits that allow her to carry in multiple states. Excuse me for this. This is her after she was attacked by a convicted felon. And she is a co-operative on Moore versus Madigan. In church.
In church. That has to be church.
And you were saying about it being equalizer.
That's
This is
it.
a case.
And it wasn't just.
This isn't a case of someone saying, I want to exercise my rights. This is a case of a woman who asked for it and said, asked for a permit and was denied. And she suffered actual physical harm as a result of being denied her rights under the Constitution. So there's a difference between New York, which predates this decision, and this, because this is a loss. And as such, there should be a remedy that is done for this. Now, also one thing, yes, there are people, I heard during some of the amendment debates, that say, well, just call 911. I've been a 911 responder for over 20 years. I can tell you that there's an acceptable window of response time, which is anywhere from typically 3 to 6 minutes for an emergency life and death call. Lethal force studies performed by police and the FBI have shown that the majority of lethal force incidents result in a fatality that happens in under 2 minutes. And there is no, as far as call of police, there is no responsibility on the part of the government legally ever since South versus Maryland in 1856. There have been 24 court cases that have said that you cannot sue the government for a failure to protect the individual citizen. That right of responsibility, that duty of responsibility, lies with every single one of us in this room. And so far, all the state has said is, cops, some politicians, not you, because they know that they can walk from the liability. She couldn't walk. She was airlifted. And the folks at St. Louis Hospital said that her injuries were unlike any they had ever seen. And they were amazed that she survived. So there's a little difference between the folks that in New York were something theoretical and providing justice for Mary Shepard, which is what that court case is about.
The gentleman in the back has a question.
I guess there's a common theme around here, and it's that people are basically saying, don't treat us like criminals because we haven't broken the law. I'm a lifelong Waukegan resident, graduated Waukegan High School in 1996. Not an outdoorsman, but I am a gun enthusiast and a veteran. There's a lot of other veterans here. The thing is that, you know, a lot of people like to say, well, oh, Chicago, they want to keep the guns off the streets. You know, we had a young lady from Chicago killed a few blocks away from here by guns. And the only thing that separates us from them is that it was the criminals that were breaking the law. The criminals aren't going to follow the laws. We're saying, don't treat us like criminals. Be liberal with the gun right laws and concealed carry, because that's what's going to separate us from the criminals. The cops aren't always going to be there. They're not always going to help you when you need them until it's too late sometimes. There was a gentleman, like 2 or 3 weeks ago in Milwaukee at 4:30 in the morning, saved a woman's life because her boyfriend was stabbed and burned to death.
Yep.
He had a concealed carry permit. He was a Marine Corps veteran. He pulled over, stopped, held this man at gunpoint until the police showed up and arrested him. We're saying this because we want personal safety. We're not saying that it's going to be like the Wild Wild West. We're not saying that. You know, I grew up here. My parents' first house was on 11th and Avenue. I grew up in downtown Waukegan, and I live on the northwest side right now. I live right by St. Dismas Church. You know, I'll walk anywhere in the city. I'll walk anywhere in Waukegan. I'll walk anywhere in Zion. I'll walk anywhere in the city of Chicago, and I feel afraid for my safety. But if I had a firearm, I would feel that much safer. My girlfriend commutes to the city. She takes the metro train. She has to walk a few blocks, almost a mile. There's sometimes that she's afraid to walk at night, so she'll take a taxi cab. She can't carry a mace. She can't carry a taser. She can't carry a pocket knife. She can't carry a firearm. She's been accosted, not accosted, but she felt threatened. She saw a guy acting funny in an alley near her building at work and threw a beer bottle at her. I have a friend on the Chicago Police Department who's a sergeant and works in that district, and he said crime has gone up in that district by 70% in the last 2 years. And that's in the Ravenswood neighborhood, where Mr. Emanuel lives. And, you know, like we're all saying, and obviously we haven't gone through all these amendments, but we want you to represent us. We want you to go back and tell your colleagues down in Springfield that don't treat us like criminals. We're not criminals. The people that are going to go out and get concealed carry licenses already legally own firearms, already follow the rules. They're going to go through the training. They're going to pay the fees for the training. The people that we need to worry about are the people we should be afraid of, which are the criminals, are the crooks, the people that are breaking the law, that aren't following the law. And I think that's the biggest thing that we all have here is that, you know, we're not criminals. Don't treat us like it, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joe Schmidt. A lot of you don't know me. I am a former criminal. I served 2 sentences in the Illinois Department of Corrections. I am for concealed carry in all states, and for all reasons. And many of the reasons that we're talking about tonight. As a former criminal, I can go find a weapon anywhere, anytime, any place. I can have whatever you want in 72 hours. So the laws don't matter to me, or didn't when I was a criminal. It's important to me now. I have a family. I have people I want to protect. I have friends in this room that I want to see protected. I don't think that any law should abridge our right to carry a weapon. As Keith said, we have the right to carry a weapon. Even as a convicted criminal, I can carry a weapon. I can carry a crossbow. A 5-point razor blade will kill you just as dead as a 38 stun guns. When I take my boat out on Lake Michigan, I have to carry a 12-gauge pistol. It's called a flare gun. It has a magnesium round in it. I don't know what you see. If you've ever been to Vietnam, you see what white phosphorus will do to you from 12 yards. It's not pretty. There is no reason to ban concealed carry under any circumstances. People who have guns, it's well noted that the Japanese did not attack the U.S. mainland because the people of the United States had weapons. We should not ban it. We should not allow it as a convicted criminal. I am totally against any form of restriction on concealed carry.
If I may make it, excuse me, very simple. Through all the discussion, the debate, all the rhetoric and bullcrap that's going on, make it very simple. Why not just pass nothing? Just stick to the Second Amendment. Period. And also, if I may, along with the Second Amendment, we also go to the Fourth Amendment, which states that all people have the right to be secure in their persons, their house, their papers, and their effects. Which means that when you go through any of this crap, you got the FOIA card, the government has a track on you. That's all the government wants to know, is what you have and where you are. And any infringement on that is a violation of the Constitution. So please, remember that when you go back to Springfield. Thank you.
How do you feel about constitutional carry? We've been here for 50 minutes. I don't know your views on anything.
Constitutional carry is basically if you retain your constitutional right, meaning you have not been convicted or adjudicated or something of that nature, that if you legally can possess firearms, you can carry them on your person other than in those areas which are specifically prohibited by law, which there are already a number of areas which are specifically prohibited.
Vermont is one state.
It would basically mean that there would be no permit system, a law-abiding citizen can simply carry.
I've not read them all.
Vermont.
It's the Constitution.
Where do you stand? Where do you stand? If the law is not passed by June 9th, we will have constitutional carry. Which means that we just
How do you feel about that?
Actually, and that's why we don't like to pass the law.
You don't want us to pass it.
No. You argued till June 10th.
They solved some of my questions that I didn't have.
Answer his question.
Yeah, answer his question, please.
Actually, I want to read through it fully. I did not read through the entire.
It would be June 10th, and you'd be able to go and walk around with fire.
But no, there
Open
are specific
or
places
concealed.
where you can and cannot. I don't know what those places are. And for me to say, yes, I'm going to support it, and I don't know.
What places are you against? I mean, we want to know how you feel about it. Are we just talking just to talk? Or, I mean, are you already
I
saying
think
so on the
I'm very
manager?
clear. I said that if I read the bill, that made sense, a common sense bill, that would go for it.
What is common sense?
What is it?
Exactly.
Out of everything we've talked about, which pieces
Go down.
do you
Go
think
down.
by what we
Actually,
said
the
are okay?
gentleman here in the head had some very good, and I don't think what he mentioned was in your constitutional hearing, but he made some very good points, particularly in regard to straw purchases, which is a major concern to a lot of individuals.
Ms. Mayfield,
We have a lot of
and if I may address that for just a moment, I know that that's not part of concealed carry, but it was brought up earlier, and I would be proud of you as my representative if you would put a straw purchase bill in, either as an amendment to this or as a separate bill, standalone bill. Currently, straw purchases are one of the lowest prosecuted crimes in the state of Illinois and nationally.
It's already illegal.
I'll put the bill in,
Excuse
tell me
me.
what you want to say, I will put the bill in.
No, let me finish, please. Let me finish, please. The bill that I would like you to put forward would be simply, currently a straw purchase it can be a felony, it is often been pleaded down to a misdemeanor, or it is given up for information. Oftentimes, women are part of the straw purchase program for gangs and criminal elements. What they do is they get somebody who is either a newbie in the gang or someone, typically it is a female, to purchase a firearm from a legal, lawful store because that person has not been yet convicted of a criminal offense. They then give that person a plea bargain, let them off on that straw purchase so that they can find out, yes, I gave it to my boyfriend, I gave it to this person, and they went out and committed a crime. My proposal for you would be this. Propose a straw purchase bill. You can add it as an amendment to this, to where if that firearm, which was purchased by a straw purchase nature, is used in a crime, that the person that bought it would be considered an accessory to that crime. In other words, it would be very much like the person driving the car doing the drive-by. It would be like the person who is, holding the bag
while the person with the gun is demanding the teller dump the money into it. By doing that, you will, by doing that, and people are prosecuted for that, the peripheral element of the gangs may look at that and see that and say, you know what, I don't want to be involved. And on a second point, I'd like to tell you right now, according to the New Sun today, there is concealed carry in Waukegan. There are currently 2 gang elements, one Hispanic, ages late teens, early 20s with a firearm, going around and robbing people. There's another group of young men, and the police just put out a warning on that. So these guys can go out there and use a firearm, or they are doing that because they are breaking the law.
Well, if they know they have firearms, why aren't they arresting them? That makes sense.
Well, because they haven't caught them.
No,
They haven't caught them.
They have descriptions.
Oh,
They have descriptions. Look, if I can quote this real quick. Authorities are asking to be on the lookout for 2 possibly different robbery crews who are robbing individuals on the street. The city has recently seen an increase in what police call, quote, open-air armed robberies. Several descriptions of the offenders have surfaced. One description is a group of 2 to 4 males, Hispanic males, late teens, early 20s. A second description has been given of a group of 3 male blacks in their late teens or early 20s, and they are also armed with at least one handgun. So when I walk off my property, I have to take my gun off. But if I run into them, I'm defensive. So
I do agree. And I thank you for sharing that. For those of you that don't know, I'm the chair for Public Safety, Police, and Fire. And one of the things that I am looking for, we don't have enough police on the street. I don't care what nobody says, we do not have enough police officers on the street. And there's some money, but there's not a lot of money. And one of the things I'm looking at is ways on how we can fund.
That's why we need concealed carry.
Well,
They're becoming unaffordable.
Well, we need more police officers. I'm not saying anything against concealed carry, I'm just speaking to the element of public safety. And we do need more officers, we can investigate when we have those kind of.
In addition to, but that's not the place of concealed carry.
No, I'm addressing.
They're becoming unaffordable is the problem.
I know.
I have an issue.
Yes, sir.
Not to be disrespectful, I don't want any more gun laws. You don't need a straw. You don't need a straw poll.
This isn't a
There's
gun law.
already
This is
laws.
a crime law.
There's already laws in place for that. Springfield, Madigan will screw that up and restrict other people. Then it will get messed up. Trust me. If all you need to do, the most gun-abiding citizens and law-abiding citizens and guns enthusiasts in the state and in the country are those that sell guns legally. If you were to put together a website with list of convicted drug dealers, convicted gangbangers, convicted illegal gun arms holders, and criminals, the gun shop owners can choose not to serve that customer. If it's a house that has a... Well, that would stop your problem right there with the straw poll, the straw purchases.
I like the point that you brought up, they're going to use somebody to purchase a gun that doesn't have a record.
But if it has an address, they don't have to choose to sell it to the address of someone living in that home.
No. Okay. I have 2 quick comments. The first one is about concealed carry. I'm sure you, in doing your homework, you've heard about concealed carry and the fact that there's training involved and licensing and things of that sort. But, you know, they use the word training in kind of the broadest sense possible. One of the aspects of that training is understanding the legal implication that falls upon you, the holder of the firearm, once you elect to present it. It's a game changer. It's a life changer. So the reason I bring this up is because I think there's a misnomer out there that concealed carry passes. We're going to have the old Wild West and the guys slinging their guns on their side and doing twirls with them, all sorts of stuff. That just ain't going to happen. Because I think the people that are represented in this room are above average in intelligence, and they understand that if and when they choose, not when it's legislated they can, but if and when they choose to participate as a concealed carry person, they understand what they're buying into. Just like a police officer, when he pulls his duty weapon, he understands he's at a very scary line. It's a line that changes everything. Not only for him, his family, and the community, but the person on the business end of that. So I just want to make that point. And the other point is I want to make real quick is kind of about the whole gun control registration aspect. You know, if you wonder why the hackle on the people's neck is standing up in this room when we talk about this stuff, I want to read something very briefly to you. I came across this. It came out of a book called Gun Control, a written record of efforts to eliminate private possessions of firearms in America. And it was written by a guy named Robert Kukla, who was an attorney. And he lived in Park Ridge, Illinois, by the way. And this is a book, and in there he has an excerpt. I'm going to read to you a quick excerpt. It's called Rules for Revolution. Now, I want you to listen for the very last point, because it kind of talks about the slippery slope and how it works and how we as a society have kind of fallen down it. And when we get to that last point, you can see that is even slipperier than the slope we just came down. It says, on a dark night in 1919, two lorries rolled across the bridge and on into the town of Dusseldorf. Among the dozen rowdy-singing Tommies apparently headed for a gay evening were two representatives of the Allied military intelligence. These men had traced waves of indiscipline, mutiny, and murder among the troops to the local headquarters of a revolutionary organization established in the town. Pretending to be drunk, they brushed by the sentries and arrested the ringleaders, a group of 13 men and women seated at a long table. In the course of the raid, the Allied officers emptied the contents of the safe. One of the documents found in it contained a specific outline of rules for bringing about a revolution, and it's reprinted to show the strategy of materialistic revolution and how personal attitudes and habits of living affect affairs of the nation. So here's the list that was in this document they found called Rules for Revolution. Corrupt the young, get them away from religion, get them interested in sex, make them superficial, and destroy their ruggedness. Just imagine in your mind a checkbox as they go down the list. Get control of all means of publicity, and thereby, one, get people's minds off their government by focusing their attention on athletics, sexy books, plays, and other trivialities. Divide the people into hostile groups by constantly harping on controversial matters of no importance. Destroy the people's faith in their natural leaders by holding these latter up to ridicule, obloquy, and contempt. Always preach true democracy, but seize power as fast and as ruthless as possible. 5. By encouraging government extravagance, destroy its credit, produce fear of inflation with rising prices and general discontent. 6. Foment unnecessary strikes in vital industries, encourage civil disorders, and foster a lenient and soft attitude on the part of the government towards such disorders. I'm coming down to it here. Stand by. 7. Specialist arguments caused by the breakdown of old moral values, honesty, sobriety, continence, faith in the pledged word, and ruggedness. And this is the one you've been waiting for. And again, this is out of a document called Rules for Revolution from May 1990. Last one. Cause the registration of all firearms on some pretext with a view to confiscating them and leaving the population helpless. That last bullet point is the reason why people are here today. If you don't understand history, and I'm going to just make a blanket statement, everybody in this room has had history sometime in their educational career. So the point is, if you don't understand history, you will repeat it. And that last bullet point I read is the reason why everybody here is very concerned about any aspect or anything being touched on the Second Amendment. It's because it's what kept us free. It's what keeps us as a powerful nation. Thank you.
I want to go back to what I said earlier before I got shut down. Everybody in this room said no and kind of rolled their face up when I talked about registering criminals. But everybody in here was okay with registering the gun owners by having a FOID card. You said you could not support a criminal registration for the use of gun shops to check. You're singling out gun owners. What's the difference? You want to know who has the guns, we want to know who not to sell them to.
Actually, our state police wanted to register.
Well, if we're registering gun owners, why can't we register those that we register sex offenders? Why can't we register gangbangers and known gangbangers and people to get arrested with illegal weapons?
Because that'll get gray, and people like me will be thrown in some thing of saying I've been some
But can I address
and
the
that's
issue?
exactly
Because
what'll happen.
while we still have time? Yeah. So your points here about the training, number 19, one of the amendments that was not considered, actually did require a one-time 40-hour training course conducted by the state police and an additional 10 hours of training prior to renewing the license. This was never called, there was still some controversy around it, but what the sponsor was trying to do was to get that additional training so that when you do walk out, it's not the Wild Wild West. You're not slinging the gun. You are more responsible. I'm just paraphrasing or using words, okay? No, please, allow me to finish. Thank you. We want to make sure that individuals realize that when you brandish that gun, you know, that there may be a consequence.
Ma'am, you're preaching to the choir. Every person here who knows about the carry, conceal concept knows first and foremost that is the biggest thing you must be willing to accept if you are going to go down that road. So you're kind of preaching to the choir here about the training. We understand the training. What we want is the bill to pass and allow it.
Okay.
Most of us are already trained better than the police on the streets.
Okay. This gentleman here had his hand up for a while, sir.
Yeah, I'm Mike Rizzo, we talked on the phone.
Oh, okay.
How you doing? Yeah. Okay, I want to make a point here to you folks. My name is Mike Rizzo. John Horstman and I were in Concealed Carry Incorporated by John Birch. That was started in 1997. I go back to 99. So we're a couple of the original guys who really pushed for this before it was cool. My friend here, John, was put in DuPage County Jail on a $250,000 bond. So John and I have walked the walk. I've been involved in exposing police criminals and bringing them to justice. And let me tell you something, that's not for the faint of heart. I had a man show up at my house at 2 a.m. after I filed a complaint against him and threatened my life. So please keep that in mind when what we're going to talk about here. And Rita addressed this. There's language that has been put in this bill. This was in the bill in 2011, and it's called duty to inform. And it sounds like a reasonable idea. You're compelled to tell the officer you interact with that you're armed. Sounds great in theory, but we've got criminal penalties attached to that, which means if you don't tell him, or he says you didn't tell him, he can arrest you. I'm not a lawyer, but I happen to have been a pre-law major. I know the law. I've acted as my own attorney. He has the right to arrest you. He has the right to use force. He has the right to use force and you're armed. Are you guys getting my drift? How this would work? I had a man show up at my house 5 days after I filed a complaint against him, an officer. He had an unmarked car when he first stopped me. Let's look at this language here. It says a law enforcement officer. If a law enforcement officer initiates an investigative stop, you know what that is? I was sitting on a bus stop in high school. Cops rolled up. They said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm waiting for the bus." That's an investigative stop. So don't kid yourself that this isn't going to be applied. This could be. It doesn't say this man has to be on duty, in uniform, in his jurisdiction. A man could walk up to you and say, "I'm an FBI agent. I want to ask you a question." For the women out there, I want you to remember this, because I was stopped and followed by an unmarked car at night in the dark. I did not know who was following me. These officers have TAC teams and unmarked cars now. Ted Bundy was a serial killer abducted, raped, and murdered women using a plainclothes, police-type vehicle and phony credentials. So think about where this can be misused and where this is going. Now, unfortunately, I hate to tell you, but based on what I found here, this language was not put in here by Speaker Madigan or Rodney Manuel. It was put in here by Todd Vandermeide, the NRA lobbyist. And for your information, Todd Vandermeide is a contract employee of the NRA. I spoke to Brandon Phelps on February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day. I happened to catch him in his office. I said, sir, we got a problem. This works in the small towns like Harrisburg, Illinois, which I've been through Harrisburg, because they know their local law enforcement. They go to church with them. I don't know who a policeman is when I'm driving around here every time I walk out of my house. This is not appropriate in Chicago and Cook County. Okay? So if you folks, what I learned on my grandfather's farm, like if you don't cut down the pasture, it grows into weeds. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And we're up here coming back from 1999 to warn you folks, get this out of the bill now. And tell NRA, tell Chris Cox, Executive Director, who's Phelps' boss, Vandermeide's boss, Chuck Cunningham, Director of State and Local Affairs. They're 800 miles away, and I don't personally think they're watching what this man is doing. And you come and see us afterwards if you're concerned about this issue. Let's get this bill out of there. Let's get this out of this bill now, before it becomes a problem. Ohio is trying to repeal it right now. I spoke to the man who's the grassroots head of Ohio. And let's play offense if the chiefs of police. We're not here to give the chiefs of police what they want in this bill. We're here to protect citizens who pay the salaries of the chiefs of police. Absolutely. Let's not forget that, okay? Absolutely. And I'll tell you how you do this. The fellow who runs the grassroots group in Ohio, he's an airline pilot, Jim Irvine, Buckeye Firearms. I ran this by him. I said, what can we do to get this out of this? He says, I'll tell you something, Mike. He says, when we wanted to pass concealed carry in Ohio, and let's remember, it took 3 times to get it passed. So we're in a similar situation. It's a long struggle. He said, police unions didn't want to sign off on the bill. He goes, you know what we did? We got a rep to sponsor a bill. If you're under the influence, your police powers are suspended. Why don't we have that in Illinois? In the Brandon Phelps bill, if I'm under the influence, my permit's no good. See what I'm talking about? Let's play offense, not defense. Let's get the bill that we want. I mean, everyone here has a pet peeve. This is my pet peeve, okay? So where you stand on an issue depends on where you sit. What I'm telling you is, I don't want anyone in this room to go through what I went through, be followed, have my life threatened, okay? A man show up at my house at 2 a.m. in the morning. You better not be faint of heart if you want to go through what I went through. And this is designed to be abused. That's why it's here, okay? And Vandermeide is feeding a certain portion of us into the criminal justice system so we can get arrested, so they can make money, so we got to hire a lawyer. And don't count on NRA to pay your legal bills, because we were doing this before Otis McDonald ever came along. John Horstman here did not get 10 cents from the NRA. So let's just understand what's going on here. If anyone's concerned about it, please come and see us later. And those in Chicago, Cook County, Northern Illinois, we need to have a bill that's good for the whole state and not just in Harrisburg, Illinois. Thanks, I appreciate it.
I just want to comment, as I stated at the beginning, because Mike did provide me with that information, and I didn't just sit on it, I did actually have a conversation. I am concerned as well with that 6-month sentencing, because number one, it's a gun charge to law-abiding citizens. If you're arrested, that's a gun charge. Do you really deserve a gun charge? I don't think so, and I don't think you deserve 6 months in jail because you're driving home tired after dropping your daughter off at college, and you failed to say, oh, by the way, I'm carrying a gun. So now you're sitting in jail for 6 months. I don't think that's fair either. So that is something that we're definitely going to follow up on.
Rita, I did speak to Brandon. I'm not just here to tear people down. I provided this language based on the Missouri bill. And the Missouri bill, for the infractions in the bill, all the no-nos in the bill are geographic, except for creating this new crime of duty to inform. I looked at Missouri, it says, shall not be a criminal act. Specifically define it as non-criminal, and you de-escalate the situation because it's not arrestable. He has no right to use force. I'm willing to live with that. If Brandon is willing to put that in the bill. And, they want to have penalties. But we're not there to allow, we're giving the police an incentive to make it.
Yeah, I told you, I will continue to work with you.
Thank you.
Can I
appreciate it.
This
Can I ask you
gentleman
a
here has
point
stand up for a
can I ask for a point of clarification?
Okay.
So you're okay with the duty to inform as long as it's not a criminal act?
No, I personally, you're asking my opinion?
Yes.
I think duty to inform needs to come out because it creates a new crime and treats us like criminals.
So you said you'd be okay with it if it was considered a
No,
non-criminal?
I would say strip out the duty to inform and for all the other infractions, make it a non-criminal violation.
Oh, okay.
That would be my suggestion, because Ohio is trying to repeal it right now. If it was a good idea, they wouldn't be trying to repeal it. In other words, I don't want to have less rights. A felon walking down the street has the right to remain silent. If he's approaching a stop by an officer, he can remain silent. If the officer performs a search, he can get it bounced out, you know, get that conviction out. You know, we're going to be treated less. Why should we accept that? You guys have all been saying we're the salt of the earth, we're the last people, we're trained, we're probably the last people, you know, I was Cub Scout, Boy Scout, Chicago lifeguard, I get what you're saying. So let's act like we're legit citizens and not allow ourselves to be treated like criminals because Todd Vandermeer wants to pass a bill, you know, and enhance his career as a lobbyist. You know, it's not the place of the NRA lobbyist to become deals with the chiefs of police. The chiefs of police are appointed, they're not elected. The sheriffs are behind us. We got a court order. This criminal code has been on the bill since before I was born. Let's play to win. I want a good bill where if I die tomorrow, nothing happens to me. People don't get abused the way I was. Okay, that's what I'm trying to do. I think we need a good bill for the next 50 years. Not just, oh, let's just do it. Oh, I'm going to be so happy. This isn't about carrying a gun. It's about carrying a gun legally. There's a difference. You're creating an incentive for the police to victimize citizens, and just like in DUIs, it's the average Joe doesn't pose a threat. They can put you through the system. It's $5,000 in legal bills. I'm not here to create, you know, more job security for these guys to come back and, oh, now we'll fight it, now we'll try and get rid of it. I will tell you this right now. You do not get this out of this bill before it passes, you will never get rid of it. Because there's no never rid of it.
This is HP.
Hold on one second. Well, I'll talk with you afterwards. Here's what's going on. You're creating more work for the lawyers. You know, that's not what we're here to do. I mean, trust me. The money they give you doesn't ever make it right, by the way. I mean, I clash with the system. I'm lucky to be here talking to you. So just word to the wise for you folks. You know, you don't ever want to go through what I went through. And I was not physically harmed, but I was stalked. So, you know, take it out now.
Another question.
You know.
Okay, this gentleman here. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you very much for holding this. Yeah, I mean, so that in Colorado, decriminalize all the instances where you are in a place carrying concealed that doesn't want you to carry concealed. Like someone posts a sign in a place of business that says no concealed carry, you wind up walking in there. It's not a criminal offense. You know, it's basically a traffic ticket for you and a fine. Because, you know, people make mistakes. That kind of thing happens, and it's best for them. But the couple of things that in here that I was looking at is basically public transportation and the insurance costs. These are
$1 million insurance,
these are like the, you know, rich suburban people who spend carry costs, basically. So, and the same thing is true, I think, of public transportation. I heard Forrest Slade will testify in Chicago at that hearing. And I was struck by what he was saying because my college job was driving a bus for the CPA. And you know, the notion that you could somehow say there's no concealed carry whatsoever on public transportation, first of all, it's almost impossible to enforce it. I mean, you can't have a TSA at every bus stop. And the other thing is, if I'm a criminal, all I have to do is stake out bus stops. You know, and either the people coming off the bus or the people walking to the bus are now victims. Because I know and a lot of the argument is, you know, we have a crowded bus, which believe me, I know what a crowded bus is like. And you can't, you know, you want to shoot anybody, it's going to be a terrible thing, and everybody's going to have to do it. The presence of a gun is enough. The knowledge that a gun could be there is enough. Crime from ever happening in the first place. It's, you know, people think that statistics over and over have shown that the vast majority of times crime is committed by a person who is carrying a concealed. The gun is never even produced. I know a couple of guys myself who have actually been through that experience, and I was when I was a bus driver. When I was a bus driver, I was driving a Kimball Holman bus. I was on Holman Lake Street. Two guys came on the bus and started to accost me, which I thought was kind of strange because I was, a young man, and they usually go after the passengers. So there was an elderly black woman sitting in the lawn seats across from me, and she told him, "Leave him alone." And the guy turned around and said, "What are you going to do about it?" And she reached in her purse with her hand and said, "Sit down, or I'll shoot your ass." And he said, at that moment, those two thugs said, "We're cool, paid their fare," and sat down in the bus. Now, at the time, I was a little shocked, but very grateful. And there was a great lesson there. I mean, this was an elderly black woman who obviously, had taken her own protection very seriously, and who had, made the choice, despite the law, to be able to protect herself and protect me and the other passengers that were on that bus that day. And I only hope that woman was never felt a power in the system that would take that ability away from her and put her in harm. So, this is something that I lived through and I actually saw. And again, the gun was never produced. There was nothing. Which is, she reached in and they knew exactly what she was reaching for, and they knew exactly what they were doing, and it stopped.
This gentleman with the camera.
Okay, Lenny Jarrett with Champion News. I have a quick statement real quick and then I have a question. The first statement, we're all sitting here, I know most of us would rather see constitutional carry get nothing passed out of Illinois because they always screw everything up in Springfield. But then we're sitting here talking about, well, I'd approve this, I'd approve that. Why are we negotiating our rights away? Per se, and hear from us. This is for the audience.
We're asking permission.
Right, we're asking permission for our own rights, which is not right. But the other question I had was earlier. The gentleman was here. I was talking about putting up a website registering criminals, so all the criminals are registered. You said you wouldn't support that because it's singling out criminals. I'd like to know a little bit more why you would be against having a website that told everybody who the criminals are.
Well, actually, you said you would put it out there to all gun owners. We currently have a law enforcement system in place where law enforcement officers can go to the system and they can pull up a criminal background for just about anyone. Okay, that's already out there. But now you want to open it up to the general public. There's no way of guaranteeing confidentiality of those documents, of access to that information. And just because a person offended doesn't mean that they're going to continue to offend. We have a prime example here. Joe Schmidt is an upstanding citizen here in our community. And, everybody has the right. You do your time and you rehabilitate. And then you become a contributing citizen. Should what they've done 15, 20 years ago still affect them? Because that website that you're talking about would still show, those offenses, because some offenses can't be removed. And I don't think that's
Right, but we're kind of willing to make sure all the citizens register, but not the criminals. I guess it's kind of that.
They'll start making people criminals.
Right.
Well, I'm worried about the rights of the criminals instead of the rights of law-abiding citizens. That's what I'm talking about. I know you said that's kind of what it sounded like to me.
One aspect, because he asked a specific question. So there was that.
What we're saying here, though, is that these people haven't done their time, and if they haven't been rehabilitated or they haven't served the punishment for their crime, why are they out on the streets in the first place? This man has done his time. He's been convicted. I'm not going to sit here and say he's a piece of crap and I never want to see him again. I shouldn't judge him like that because he's already been through the system. He's been through the ringer.
But if I'm on a registration site, somebody should judge me not knowing anything about me.
Exactly.
They're not going to know a thing about me. That man sold drugs. He's a piece of shit. And that's why it can't happen. There are certain registries that are required, that are necessary. Sex offender registry being one, a murder registry being another. But to register every criminal, first of all, who's going to pay for it?
That's
The
right.
cost of doing that would
It's a computer entry.
yeah,
Yeah, we're
would be tremendous.
It's one computer entry.
Again, you're enriching my rights to privacy. I did not get all my rights taken away when I served my sentence. The only right I got taken away from me was the right to carry a firearm. I still have the right to privacy. I still have the right to pursue happiness, to pursue a productive lifestyle.
Right, but
and I do that. If I'm on a registry, you've taken that right away from me.
No, we're taking the right of you to buy a gun. A gun dealer has the right to look up and sell to whoever he
Well, if
wants.
he fails a background check because he's a convicted criminal, how the hell is he gonna get a gun when it comes to it?
Exactly.
You're
That's always there.
But the process is cost.
Gentlemen, you can continue the sidebar later. We got another question over here and a couple over here. I want to try to get to them before we get out of here.
You ask me when you're treating my rent.
Just one thing real quick. The gentleman here was talking about public transportation. It's interesting because today the Representative Mel is making such a strong case for keeping concealed carry off of public transportation. Sometimes a full page cover. Better hide your iPad because crime on the CTA was escalating immensely. And it's funny because somehow they didn't get the Chicago paper in Springfield that day. You mentioned we don't want this to be the Wild West. So we want training.
No, I was repeating someone else's statement. Sir.
Well, earlier you made a comment about that would be a reason for certain amendments and certain wishes being included in the bill.
We're talking about training.
Well, it's interesting because as far as Wild West and brandishing and everything else, people said in 1987 when Florida passed shall issue, you have a right for a law-abiding citizen to defend themselves without all sorts of hoops and denials. Blood's going to run in the streets. The gunshine state. All these horrible little anecdotes about how, look, somebody gun owners, and nothing happens. And since then, 38 other states have followed suit for shall issue to law-abiding citizens. And every single time, Missouri, Proposition B, there's going to be, St. Louis is going to run red with blood. Didn't happen. Wisconsin. I remember the Milwaukee paper saying, we're proud that we don't have concealed carry results with these stupid gun owners. Blood over in the streets. Our cheese will turn red. And so, as far as all the concerns over Wild West shootouts, and the opening for actually one person shooting, it hasn't happened. There's evidence.
The reference was not to Wild West shootouts. It was more to the attitudes. And that was, his comment was more on stress and training.
Well,
and that was more what that was about. It wasn't that there was going to be blood running through the streets. It was just the need for training so that individuals who do have these guns understand the responsibility that comes with having a gun. That was basically what that was about.
Well, can you please pass my sentiments along to your colleagues and explain to them that they pull those excuses and agree to agree?
Okay, great.
Thank you for letting me speak. I know there's probably a couple others in here too, but as an FFL, I already have enough shit to do when I have to do a background check on people. I don't want to have to look up another database. It's really none of my business. You know, if I run a background check on someone, I'm going to know if they can or can't purchase the gun. As far as straw purchases go, that list doesn't serve any purpose for a straw purchase because that's not who's buying the gun anyway. It would be a girl or another boy or someone else buying the gun.
It's not a legal issue, it's a preference issue.
The laws are already on the books. Enforce the laws that are on the books. I don't want any more laws. The laws are 20,000 laws on the books already. I want what I think everybody wants. We want safe streets. We want to work with the people who are, I hate to use, they're opposed to the concealed carry law. You got the million moms against gun, all that other stuff. We want what they want too. We want safe streets. We want safe schools. I want to walk down the street knowing that, I'm safe. If someone accosts me, I can protect myself. I can protect my children. I can protect my wife. I can protect this Charlie guy right here if he's in danger. That's what we're doing. I think we all want that. And I think just the presence, like some people, the mental, the Wild West and, walking off cocky, because I'm, no. What it does is enables you to walk safely through the streets. It also enables you to triple check yourself before you go accost someone, because maybe they're carrying, maybe you're carrying, no one wants to get in a shootout. We're law-abiding citizens. It's inherently proven. I'll give you a copy of what I brought tonight. It's inherently proven, around the world, throughout the country, that, crime is reduced in these instances. And I think we all know this, and I think people need to research it, become educated, elect good representatives to go and represent the good people in their districts. Is what we need, and that's what we have. And I thank you for having this meeting.
Not directly on the interior, you did mention earlier as far as magazine limits, capacity. you said that you spoke with Phelps on that. I didn't get your clear position on that.
No. I said, what they did is they came up with, I said that Phelps spoke very well against it. And what, there's another amendment that's not on here.
Well, are you for or against limiting, is my question.
Right.
My second question is, what is your stance on like AR-15? No, they're not assault.
They're not assault rifles.
They're called assault rifles by these Chicago politicians.
I'm going to tell you, anything that hunter uses, I don't have an issue with it, okay? I have a lot of hunters in my community.
For instance, the
But they're not taking bandy out with these assault or with machine guns.
The weapon.
They're illegal.
She just fucking sneezed herself.
Yep, she did.
We outlawed machine guns in the United States in 1934.
Yep.
We outlawed machine guns in the United States in 1968. How many times are we going to outlaw machine guns in the United States? There aren't any. Illinois won't even allow you to have the ones the federal government will let you have, and you can't have any that were made after 1986, is it?
So my question was, what is your stance on and what is your stance on what they call assault rifle with AR-15, AK-47, semi-automatic, single one bullet, the same weapon, for instance, that they say Adam Ramsey used. What is your stance on those weapons?
Okay, to answer your first question, when I talked about the magazines and everything like that, what I stated is that there is another amendment, quite another one, and this one actually grandfathers in those individuals that currently own those machines. Can I finish?
Let her speak, please.
Let me finish. The amendment states that if you currently own it, you will continue to own it. You can still have your high magazines and everything else. It just will not provide any new permits for that type of
and you have to register, right?
I don't think it said anything about registering.
You have to notify.
Yeah, you have to go.
It's a new amendment. It's a new amendment. We haven't voted on yet. And I did talk to Mr. Vanderhyde again. He's obviously against it. But I wanted to talk to Representative Phelps to see, did he work on that amendment? Because Representative Phelps is, basically our amendment. Okay, so I need to know what his stance is on that and why he is either for or against it.
So you have
I try to gather as much information as possible so I can make an informed decision.
And the rifles?
The rifles? I'm not sure about the rifles, to be honest. I'm not sure. I know a lot of our sportsmen use them, particularly our downstaters. They make a very good case for them. I've not heard much in this community about the need. I'm talking about the people in my district, not outside of my district. The people in my district, okay, have not been sending me massive emails saying, I want an AR-14 rifle. Okay?
My point is,
I don't have enough information on those rifles. But I do have a constituent with her hand up. I do have a
I'd like to finish it. I'm sorry, I'd like to touch base on that one comment though. As far as
Just 1 second.
Yes.
The Constitution does not grant me the right to that assault rifle to go deer hunting. It's to protect myself against a tyrannical government
I believe it was in Texas, Oklahoma. I don't remember the state.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma? There was a man who came to her door, started beating on the door, wanted to get in. She called her husband, who called the police. He said to grab the gun and hide. She had a six-shooter, a revolver. She took the revolver. She hid her kids in like a closet type area. Her kids behind her.
That's the Georgia one.
At the door. When this man
That's
got
Georgia.
in, well before the police got there, she unloaded all 6 rounds, put 5 rounds into this person. He still ran away. He's still ran away. The police had to find him.
Suburban Atlanta.
And you want to limit me to 10 rounds in a magazine, well, like they did in New York, which is being considered unconstitutional right now, so it's 7 rounds. And what if I had 2 people coming in, one in the front door, one in the back door? The majority of shots fired, especially in an instance like that, are mixed. you limit somebody's capacity to defend themselves, and you take away their right to stay alive sometimes. I seriously want you to think about that.
I appreciate that, and we're running out of time here, and we have one last question, and this gentleman's had his hand up for a while.
Yes, ma'am. Since I retired, I got into reenacting World War II, Vietnam. By passing a ban for magazines, you affect that hobby. We cannot portray what we want to portray.
That's your pursuit of happiness.
Kill that hobby, kill the weapons.
And that's for,
Carving,
like the Civil War
magazines for magazines, Thompson submachine guns, M16s, these are all used.
And everybody, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to come out. Thank you for sharing your views with me. I took a lot of notes, I really did, and I am going to present this information when I go back. I'm obviously going to have a conversation with Representative Phelps about a lot of these things, and for the constituent that asked me to do the amendment, I will definitely file that when I get back.
Rita, say one more thing back with you.
Yes.
You said something about 5 minutes ago was very telling. You said you have no problem with firearms that are associated with hunting and this and that.
We have hunters in my district.
Okay.
I don't know what weapons they use.
And you know what? You don't, here's the thing I'm doing. You don't need to know. It is not your place or the place of the state or the federal government to tell me, I'm a hunter, what weapon I can use to pursue my happiness. It is not your call to tell me I can only, pull a joke by, oh, you gotta have a 12-gauge double barrel shotgun. I don't need the government telling me what weapon I can and cannot use. That's why the Second Amendment is written the way it is. So I just want to be clear, so you're clear, because I know you're trying to do a good job of representing the will of the people here, and not only the party line, but you have to understand, it's not a matter of just guns for hunting and guns for this or that. If I want to take a AR-15 and target shoot, that's the same to me as hunting because it's my pursuit of happiness that's governed by the Constitution of the United States.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.